Gang. What's up? And it's finally here. The history of Kamen Rider has officially gotten an ace episode. Today, we are taking a look at the production and eventual lead up to Shin Kamen Rider Prologue. The main reason I held on this video is because Kamen Rider details, especially from stuff like 89 to 91, are very hard to come by. So I had to do the best with what I had. So here's the final result. But before then, let's start with a good old recap. On the previous episode of the history of Kamen Rider, Shotaro Ishinomori and Toru Hirayama wanted to bring Kamen Rider back to the television airwaves through a prom called Have You Seen the Kamen Rider? But due to a lot happening in the 5 years between Super 1 and this proposal, not only was the draft received poorly, but Hirayama decided to abandon the project, passing the baton over to Susumu Yoshikawa, the father of Metal Heroes. Under his supervision, Kamen Rider went through drastic rehashing, only keeping the barest elements there. And the final result was Kamen Rider Black, which in later years will be considered the peak of the entire Showa era, and a gold standard for Kamen Rider as a whole. It was truly a groundbreaking series. So much so it got a direct sequel with the same writer, Kamen Rider Black RX. Despite its modest success, it nevertheless led to a halting of any Kamen Rider TV productions until 2000. So, what they do in between? Let's find out. As previously stated, after RX ended, the franchise went silent for a while. Susumu Yoshikawa thought it was for the best, as the franchise was basically parodied to death over the years, especially with the Kamen no Rider specials airing on Fuji TV in 1988 and 89, aka around the airing of Black RX. This isn't implausible. Yoshikawa desired to create a deeper work, especially one to commemorate the franchise's 20th anniversary. However, Toei decided to save that celebration for 1992 and 93, as Ultraman happened to have its 25th anniversary in 1991. This says a lot. This is basically Toei accepting that Ultraman is the more popular franchise, even back in 1991. Interestingly, one detail I didn't mention was that talks were underway discussing the celebration, even before RX finished airing. After a bunch of debates, the end result was a multimedia approach like ZX. Unsuccessful ideas were stuff like magazines, while more successful ideas were stuff like manga and films. So now we're going to branch off into two paths. Let's take a look at the first path of Shotaro Ishinomori. His proposal was Kamen Rider Gaia, based on the Gaia hypothesis, created by James Lovelock, who theorized that the Earth itself is a living organism with organic and non-organic components. This story was an attempt to bring Kamen Rider back to its thematic center, environmentalism, which obviously is strayed away from a lot. And it wasn't even the thematic center of the original story, it was just a story to create a new masked hero. The environmentalism thing came later. Don't know what I'm talking about? Watch part 1. The project took unused materials from Amazon, Black, and Kamen Rider Zero, and it created a whole new story. A man is awakened in a cryotube 20 years after the original two writers defeated Shocker. The man is a cyborg modified long before Takeshi Hongo. However, for some reason, he was frozen in a cryotube. But as vines and roots begin to overtake the remains of the Shocker facility he was in, they happen to penetrate the cryotube, mutating the cyborg. The vines and roots are from the mysterious Tree of Life. Thus, the man becomes the Guyborg. I think this is a portmanteau of Gaia and Cyborg. The villain is an alien that came to Earth 70 years prior to the story to destroy nature. Its minions include eerie robots / mechs and cyborg life forms, which means the cyborgs this time wouldn't have just been human, or at least that's what implied. The warrior was beastly and didn't have much heroic traits, but eventually he evolved into something more traditional. As the proposal evolved, it eventually strayed far different from the original story, and the original proposal eventually got adapted into Kamen Rider Eve, Masked Rider Gaia, a sequel to the original 1971 manga. Remember from part 1.5 where I mentioned that? I'm hitting you with the references. Okay, that's it for Ishinomori's side. Now let's look at the other side of things with Toei. So, Joe Onodera, the son of Shotaro Ishinomori, wrote a preliminary script for a feature film alongside screenwriter Junichi Miyashita. Both of them worked on Black and Black RX. The script had elements from the aforementioned Kamen Rider Gaia, mainly the intended evolution from an animalistic hero to a more traditional rider. And it was supposed to have modern themes of stuff like biotechnology in the way the rider is made by the Institute of Super Science, or Foundation as they're nicknamed. The project was also released on V Cinema, which roughly translates to straight-to-home video. Now let's talk about the story. A series of murders are going on in Tokyo. Shin Kazamatsuri, who is helping his father with research, is unknowingly transformed into a level 3 cyborg by his father's lab, the Foundation. One day, Shin is affected by Giichi Onizuka's transformation. Onizuka is a fellow researcher. As Shin's emotions grow, however, he can transform into a grasshopper monster, later dubbed Kamen Rider Shin. As the title, Shin Kamen Rider Prologue, suggests, it was supposed to be but a prologue to an intended 3 to 5 episode series, where Shin would get a more traditional appearance. Despite the unusual, to say the least, direction, a bunch of the staff from RX, like Junichi Miyashita as I said before, came to work on this project. The movie received strong sales, but unlike Black, plans for a sequel were cancelled, leading to Kamen Rider ZO, which we'll talk about next time. Okay, a bit of an update. Considering how my History of Metal Hero series has been facing copyright strike after copyright strike after copyright strike, I'm considering just remaking all the videos. Don't worry, I still have the original audio files. I can get them up there, edit some brand new footage in, brand new music, and We just gonna have a good time, la-di-da-di-da. I'm heavily considering doing that, as the only parts available on YouTube right now are 1, 3, and 6. Also, I decided to do some editing to the history of Kamen Rider series as a whole. Initially, I presented Phase 3 as being just Black and Black RX, and Phase 4 is the 90s stuff. But after looking things over, I decided to adjust the splitting off a bit more and put it under Phase 3 under 2 different mini phases. Phase 3A consists of the late 80s stuff, aka the Black Duology. Phase 3B contains all the 90s stuff, such as Shin, Zio, and J. I don't know where Saban's Mask Rider is going to fit into all this, but I'm gonna try and fit it into there as best as I can. Well, I can fit it under 3B as it uses footage from Zio and J, not just Black RX. So that's what I'm gonna do. But until then, later, fools.